Week 2, it was fun, but we also have to do the math here. Number 1, off the rip, we got to go with the New Orleans Breakers being what I think is the best team in the United States Football League. They are 2-0, and they are 1-0 in the South Division. And right now, the South Division seems to be the stronger of the two divisions. Larry Fedora's squad put together what I thought was the most complete football game by any team in the USFL so far, with their demolition, 34-3 of Tampa Bay. I mean, they put Tampa Bay on the back foot from the jump. Their scoring drive to open the game was 13 plays, 79 yards. Kyle Sloter looked like the kind of guy that was playing in the NFL just last year and looks like the kind of guy that Larry Fedora drafted. It's going well for Noel Mazzone. It didn't look like it was going to go well after their opening week, in which Sloter looked iffy against the Stars and their defense, and then comes back with a tremendously great week this week. Matter of fact, put together the second best passing performance by any quarterback in this league with 266 yards. And they have some absolute diamonds at wide receiver. Ohio State wide receiver Johnny Dixon scored a touchdown, threw one up for Dwayne Haskins. We all love that, very much enjoyed that. Jay Adams coming out of Arkansas State. That dude was a monster. And then we had Davon Taylor, who was also just an absolute stud out there coming out of Western Kentucky. You got 3 wide receivers that can absolutely run after the catch. And then you got TJ Logan, who by now you know ran 4.37 in the 2017 NFL Combine and was the fastest tailback at the NFL Combine. You got dudes, right? And it's coming together in the way that I thought it might for a guy like Larry Fedora, who hit the ground running. They were installing their offense and defense over Zoom so that when they got into Birmingham for training camp, there was no more installing to do. There was just practicing, and they have been playing like they are way ahead. Again, 2-0, 1-0, and they're going to have an opportunity, I think, to make it to the playoffs, if not to the championship game with 2 games in hand. Number 2 on my power rankings is the Birmingham Stallions, who you'll know I was down on last week because I didn't like the way that they looked against the New Jersey Generals in the first game of the inaugural USFL season. But they come back and win again, 33-28 against Kevin Sumlin's Houston Gamblers. They have an identity at quarterback, and that's kind of a theme for me, right? Who is your starter? We still are looking for that in a couple of these teams, but I said last week that I expect the quarterback play to take a jump forward, and it has, and it did. Jamar Smith has assumed the starting quarterback role after his outstanding opening week coming off the bench as an emergency quarterback. It started slowly for him. Skip Holtz did the smart thing, took the ball out of his quarterback's hands to start the second half, hand the ball off to CJ Marable, and they decided to pound the rock against the Gamblers and really were able to put together not just a great drive to open the third quarter, but open up the back end of the Gamblers defense with guys like Marlon Williams streaking downfield, 65-yard touchdown pass from Jamar Smith. I think what's cool about the Birmingham Stallions is they got so much more room to improve, and they're still 2-0 and 1-0 in the South Division. Between them and the Breakers, we're going to have a lot of fun here, right? Because somebody's O has got to go, but that South Division already showed that it is mighty, going 4-0 to start the USFL season. And before we started with these divisional matchups, I'm excited to see what that defense continues to look like with John Chavis calling plays for them. Scooby Wright is a dude. DeMarcus Gates is a dude. Shalom Lawani had to leave the game with an injury. Oh, excuse me, that's New Jersey Generals. That's not the Birmingham Stallions. I think perhaps I'm thinking about what the secondary might be with John Chavis being able to attack more with that linebacking core that includes Scooby Wright and DeMarcus Gates. But we'll see, right? We'll see. I also think that perhaps Jamar Smith is going to settle in at quarterback in a different way, and he might have to when they play the Breakers, right? Because the Breakers aren't actually going to let you get started. They're going to try to start fast. They're going to try to build a lead, and they're going to try to make you work from behind. If you start slowly, the way that the Stallions have started the last 2 games, you're probably going to be in a hole, and then we will have an even bigger lead for the New Orleans Breakers when it comes to week 3's power rankings. All right, number 3 on this list, I have the Philadelphia Stars. Just talk with Brian Scott, right? So the thing about the Stars that I've always enjoyed is that they know who they are offensively and defensively. Bart Andrus went and drafted a guy that knows his system, knows him, and will help him lead his team to what he hopes is championships. Matter of fact, before the season started, they were my dark horse to win the whole doggone thing because it's a bunch of coaches that have coached in alternative leagues, spring leagues, Canadian Football League, NFL Europe, World Football League, and the like. They know what to do with a smaller roster. They know how to take care of themselves, and they're staying healthy. Scott is figuring it out and figuring it out quickly. I think that they could be pretty good, and they're tied for first place in the North Division. We'll see if they can keep it up, especially knowing that the defense looks a little shaky at times. But guys like Channing Stripling are able to bail them out with a timely interception here and there. Jordan Moore is playing his tail off linebacker for them, and they're getting guys like Maurice Alexander to step up at wide receiver when they've already got guys like Bug Howard, former North Carolina tight end, Pro Wells, Texas Christian tight end, Brendan Eagles, Texas wide receiver, doing great things for them with a quarterback that came out of Occidental and was, until now, the best kept secret, I think, in pro football. Working on a big story for foxsports.com that I can't wait to share with you about Brian Scott and get really deep into his story and what makes him unique and a perfect fit for the USFL. Next on this list, I got the Tampa Bay Bandits. Okay. I had them near the top to start this power rankings last week. But after the way that they played against the Breakers, I got to dock them, man. You didn't score a TD. You scored 3 points. And at one point, you had 1 yard and -2 yards, -3 yards rushing, -2 yards total offense. That can't happen, all right? Bob Saunders is going to have to get this figured out with Jordan Ta'amu, who has yet to throw for 200 yards at all in any game this season, had 62, was 8 of 18 against the Breakers with John Tenuta's defense, just T-fying off on them. At one point, they had John Franklin III back there running Wildcat stuff because they were just trying to get a spark from somewhere. You're not going to be able to survive very much longer if you don't score TDs in this league, specifically in the South Division, where we've already established that it is pretty doggone loaded. But they'll have a chance. They still have a chance. It's a good football team. Pepper Johnson was able to put out a defense the week before last that looked like a world beater. They get back to that, they're going to be okay. Number 5 on this list, is the New Jersey Generals. 1-1. I thought they should have beaten the Birmingham Stallions in their season opener. They actually were able to finish the game against the Michigan Panthers with their 10-6 victory on Friday night. It's a bit ugly, but ugly is what it's going to be when you are the number 1 rushing offense in this league. As a matter of fact, the Generals average 168 yards rushing on the ground and 165.5 yards passing, right? With 2 quarterbacks. It's very interesting in that Mike Riley told me, hey, this is the first time in my career that I've ever employed a 2 quarterback system on purpose. And basically did it out of necessity. Because when they got Luis Perez in just about 10 days before the season began, he wanted to get him involved in the offense with DeAndre Johnson having already taken most of the snaps. Ben Holmes needing to go home. They found that DeAndre Johnson was a better runner and Luis Perez was a better passer, but they didn't see any real difference in production from both of them, and they want to have the best of both worlds. So they have had this system working where sometimes you'll see Perez come in right after Johnson, and then Johnson will come in right after Perez, and they'll switch them out as they need, all while they're getting outstanding running back play out of guys like Vito Victor and Trey Williams. Mike Weber was released last week, but he's still in the USFL. Basically, what happened was Mike Riley told me, you saw what happened when we lost 2 of our tight ends against the Stallions. We had to be a different football team. We were out there in 3 wide and 1 formation, and we can't have that anymore. So we made a roster decision to have 3 tight ends on the roster as opposed to 3 tailbacks on the roster, and Weber was the odd man out as he didn't play against the Stallions. So I expect Mike Weber will be picked up this week and play for somebody. It might even be the Generals. But I wanted to get out in front of that and let you guys know that everybody believes that Mike Weber is an outstanding player in this league and still has an opportunity to do some great things in this league. Next on this list, the Houston Gamblers, 1-1, but 0-1 in the South Division. Again, they took a loss to the Birmingham Stallions, who, by the way, are low-key getting the benefit of the hometown crowd in a way that it actually matters. Again, I've been to all 8 of the USFL's games. And I got to tell you, the city of Birmingham is showing up for the Stallions and they expect to win. It's one of the coolest parts of this league is just seeing who adopts who, and whether or not it's going to matter that they are all playing at Protective Stadium to start. Later in the season, they'll have a couple games at Legion Field, but they're all going on in Birmingham. And it seems the city of Birmingham is showing up for their team, and that's going to matter. As a matter of fact, there was one coach that went up to Skip Holtz and said, hey, I can't wait to play against y'all because I want to play against your crowd, right? The Houston Gamblers saw what that meant. It also means that if your offense isn't going well, that crowd is going to pounce just like that defense pounced on them. Clayton Thorson had moments where he looked like the star quarterback that he was at Northwestern, but they have been too far and too few in between. As a matter of fact, he's thrown more interceptions than he has touchdown passes in this season so far. He got the hook for Kenji Bahar a bit earlier in the game, came back, looked like he was in a position to lead the Gamblers to a comeback win. That was ended, with an interception thrown. It's tip ball, pick it off. It happens. Can't really put that on him. But they also were getting great defense from guys like Will Likely. As in, Will Likely returned this interception for a touchdown. As in, Will Likely win Defensive Player of the Week? ? I'm having all the jokes about Will Likely and these puns because, yes, I actually am a stepdad. And yes, they will get all of these puns from me too. So I'm here with these dad jokes. But I also thought it was cool that Kevin Sumlin was really effusive in his praise for his defense and what guys like Tim Lewis have been able to do for him, what guys like Will Likely have been able to do for him. Tim Lewis being defensive coordinator, Will Likely being a cornerback. Reggie Northrup is playing his butt off. Donald Payne has 33 total tackles, which leads the league. It is outstanding. He's just the kind of guy that you expect to have a really great year. It needs to have a great year, but the defense has been carrying the offense, and that's not something we're usually saying about a Kevin Sumlin-led team, which means that if they get it figured out offensively, they're going to be pretty doggone good. As a matter of fact, running back Mark Thompson's quietly having a really great season. They just haven't featured him as often as I would like to see him featured, but they're still trying to figure out what their quarterback situation is. And hopefully Clayton is able to find out what ails him so they can get back into winning. Because, again, that offense gets to be anything like decent. Watch out now. They're going to be pretty good. Number 7 on this list, the first of the winless teams in the USFL, the Pittsburgh Maulers. Now, Kirby Wilson's Maulers, I think, had the most improvement of any team in the USFL from week 1 to week 2. Week 1, it didn't look like the offense had anything like a rhythm. It looked like the identity that they wanted to establish was being thwarted because they wanted to be a run-heavy team, and that just wasn't working out. They come back in the next week, Kirby Wilson, way ahead calling plays. They've settled on a quarterback in Josh Love. Again, having a quarterback that you know is going to be your guy has seemed to settle down everybody across this league. Bailey Gaither is showing up to have 7 catches, 119 receiving yards in their loss, but still pretty doggone good game against the Philadelphia Stars. And that San Jose State connection of Josh Love to one Bailey Gaither is also paying dividends. They got an outstanding play from Jalen McClain-Sapp, who had a forced fumble and an interception in that game before having to leave it due to injury. He just couldn't go, but he's an absolute player for them. Jaron Horton has been doing an outstanding job calling defense for the Maulers, a young guy who is getting his shot, 30 years old, to be a defensive coordinator. That's one of my favorite stories in this league, and they are playing for him. Like, that has been an opportunistic defense. They've been taking advantage of the mistakes that the offense has made. I think given just a little bit more time, they're going to have an opportunity. And you know what? They got a great one, right? Because they're coming up against the team I have number 8 in the power rankings, that be the Michigan Panthers, the second and the last of the 2 winless teams in the USFL so far. I'm actually low-key kind of excited for this because these are 2 teams that are battling, okay? The Michigan Panthers decided to go with Shea Patterson from start to finish, even after Jeff Fisher said he was going to play Paxton Lynch against the New Jersey Generals. That didn't happen. But one of the reasons it didn't happen is you're still trying to let Shea win the job. He is the number 1 overall pick in the league for a reason. And he's got on the bench the only former first-round NFL draft pick in the USFL. So you want to give him as much room to try to make an impression as you can. But it just wasn't working for him, man. And it wasn't working until the final drive of the game. It's 4th and 20. I'm watching Shea Patterson scramble around, nearly take a safety in the end zone, and find Cam Scarlett down this field next to the sideline with the clock running down. He gets them in a position to win the game late. They're on the 26-yard line, and they just come up a little short for the second time in as many weeks in a game that was 10-6, which means, again, the Panthers figure it out at quarterback, figure it out offensively. They're going to be okay because defensively, they're pretty doggone good. They got a former Navy midshipman, and captain in Sean Williams at safety. Orion Stewart had the only interception of the day for the Panthers at safety. They lost 2 players to season-ending injury in as many weeks, and the only team up until then to do so. One being Warren Saba, who broke his forearm in week 1, and Joey Magnifico had a really terrible season-ending injury that basically means they're going to have to go back to the drawing board on who their tight ends are going to be and what they're going to look like. But that said, Marcus Baugh could be a guy for them, right? LaMichael Petway could be a guy for them. There are tools in place for the Panthers to absolutely be good and get back to winning. And there's still enough room in the league for them to fight for one of those 2 playoff spots in the North Division. And again, it's the weaker of the 2 divisions so far. But you got to get a win against the Pittsburgh Maulers to make me feel a little bit better. There are only 8 teams in the league, so we got to go through 1 through 8. But I got to tell you, there's great things that I've seen from all of these teams. Been fired up to watch them play football. Been fired up about spring football. And I can't wait to see what we get from week 3. Thanks for watching this video. And remember, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any other videos on the #1 Ranked Show YouTube channel.